Well, wiggle room is something the auto industry is also looking for. As far as a bottom line goes, there's little flexibility in the market right now, especially with many Canadian auto dealerships. New car sales across the country have taken a major dip over the last year, but our next guest says the news isn't all bad. Huw Williams is with the Canadian Automobile Dealers Association, and he joins us now from Ottawa. So, Huw Williams, last time we spoke to someone in your association in December, they were very optimistic about the industry, but now these new numbers have come out, 14% plunge in December. How do you feel about that?
Well, there was no doubt when we look at 2008 as an overall year, we were having a banner year right up until October, and it looked like it was going to be either the second or first best year in Canadian automotive history. We were tracking on about 1.6 million in sales, which was going to be a terrific year. But certainly we saw the market take a deep dive in November and again in December, and I think that was largely a response to some of the recessionary talk that you're seeing across the board. The big difference here in the Canadian market is that we did have a strong 2008, whereas in the U.S. The market fell off a cliff, going from 17 million to about 10 million. So we've actually had a relatively good year in 2008.
So from your perspective, who is buying cars at this point?
Well, you're seeing it across the board that people are buying cars, and you mentioned the International Auto Show here in Toronto. One of the things that's driving the car market and keeping us ahead of where they are tracking in the U.S., for example, is affordability. Here in Canada, vehicles haven't been this affordable in a generation. It's at a 16-year low in terms of price and personal disposable income. So Canadians are being able to take advantage of that now. The market is incredibly competitive. I've never actually seen manufacturers so impressed with each other's competition. When you walk the floor of the auto show, individual manufacturers are all saying the product out there is really amazing, not just from their point of view, but also when they're looking at their competitors' point of view. So that's driving the marketplace across the board in terms of both SUVs, personal cars, compacts, fuel-efficient vehicles, everything.
Right. Now, a lot of Canadians are probably not feeling right now as if they're in a position to make a large purchase like a new car, considering the economic climate right now. Do you think they have that wrong?
Well, I think you have to look at it from a point of view that the average vehicle on the age of the Canadian fleet that's on road is about 8 years of age. So Canadian families, need to turn those older vehicles over just because they've reached the end of their usable life. It's interesting, if you look at the pattern of the Canadian vehicle marketplace over the last 4 or 5 years, Canadians have actually been very responsible compared to other marketplaces such as the United States. So we've had a consistent pattern where Canadians are making good choices for their family, better environmental choices than they're making in the United States. And so we anticipate we're not going to see quite as big a dive as they've seen in the United States, because there's been that more consistent pattern of buying here in Canada. Now,
I understand you are a fan of the latest federal budget. You think that's going to help auto dealers. How would that happen?
Well, it's interesting that you mentioned, the last time that our organizations talked. At the end of last year, we really started to signal to government that credit was becoming an issue for car dealers. When your viewers drive by a Canadian car dealership, they'll look at all the vehicles on the lot, and those vehicles have to be purchased by the individual dealers. So the dealers buy the inventory and have to get financing from a bank or another financial institution. What we started to see at the end of last year was that the banks were really starting to strangle dealers in terms of cash flow and liquidity. So we were told from banking sources that was as a result of the worldwide credit markets being frozen, and the federal government stepped in to say, the industry, if it's going to be successful here in Canada, has to have liquidity. We weren't looking for any kind of bailout for auto dealers or anything of that nature, but what we were looking for is financing to keep the industry moving. So the federal government stepped in with a $12 billion program, which is a significant investment. But what's interesting about that $12 billion is that the government and Minister Flaherty is actually going to earn a return on that money. So it's one of the few investments that they get to make in terms of federal stimulus that will actually turn a profit for the government.
Right. All right. Well, listen, thanks for joining us with those insights today. We appreciate it.
Appreciate you having me on.
Huw Williams is with the Canadian Automobile Dealers Association. Still to come this hour, Johanna Wagstaff joins us with a look at Canada's latest weather forecast. That and more is just ahead on CBC News Morning.